A new battleground in the intensifying trade war between the world's two largest economies, currency valuation. The Chinese government eased its control over the yuan, allowing the currency to surpass the 7 per US dollar level for the first time in more than a decade. That prompted the U.S. Treasury Department to designate China as a currency manipulator, something it hasn't done in 25 years. With the yuan worth less, Chinese exports become cheaper, allowing to compete better in the U.S. and across the world, partly offsetting the U.S. tariffs imposed on Chinese imports. But it will come at a cost to Chinese consumers. They will pay more for imports. China's central bank is denying the U.S. accusation, saying it's a protectionist practice. Some economists think China allowing more yuan volatility can only go so far.
China is trying to say that we're not going to be bullied by the U.S. and a small reminder to the escalation of the trade war and what China can do. But a further escalation for China to use exchange rate as a weapon is highly unlikely because when it drops to, say, 7.5 or 8, then it becomes a political issue.
After share prices worldwide fell earlier this week in reaction to China's move, some experts say the view inside China is not as pessimistic and a weaker yuan was expected at some point. In the past, the U.S. has been hesitant with the currency manipulator label over concern that it could trigger a trade war, but we're already in one, so the consequences are lower. And the negotiations with the International Monetary Fund could take up to a year. And some feel that the IMF won't act against China despite the U.S. accusation of manipulation.
When he starts mentioning the IMF, the question is, what could he do there? The IMF is a consensual organization. They're not going to take sides. In fact, 2 weeks ago, they already issued their own statement about China's currency, and they said that it is in line with international standards.
Despite the arguments, the U.S. says it's still planning for a visit from a Chinese trade delegation in September. Scott Heidler, Al Jazeera, Beijing.